my little virtual math buddies. Today we are going to be continuing into our new unit of geometry and measurement, and I am hoping that this display that I have for you guys is 1,000 times more helpful to just hear me and see it a little bit better and not have to deal with that drawing tool or trying to watch me on the whiteboard. So we are going to be going over perimeter and area today. Believe it or not, you being able to identify and classify your 2D shapes from yesterday is going to help out tremendously with what we are beginning today. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the different shapes and their different equations that go with perimeter and area. So the first shape that we are going to identify and list out its equations for is the rectangle. So I have written it out for you and I am drawing it to display it for you. Now on a rectangle, it has 4 sides, and the 2 things that we like to focus on a rectangle is the width and the length. So the width and the length. Now, being able to see these on the shape is going to help with us identifying our equation. So we're going to start with perimeter. Now, perimeter, the equation for perimeter on a rectangle is 2 times the length times the width. Next, we're going to write out the area equation for a rectangle, which is going to be length times width. The next shape we are going to work on is a square. Now we know that a square has all equal 4 sides, unlike the rectangle, which the rectangle only has 2 pairs of equal sides. The square has all 4 equal sides. So for the square, we do S, meaning side. And since it's all equal, it just needs to be square on all ends. The perimeter equation is 4 times S, so 4 times the side. And the area for a square is S squared. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the triangle. So for the triangle, we have the base, which stands for B, and then we have the height, which is H. These are the 2 parts that we use in the triangle's equations for perimeter and area. So starting with perimeter, the perimeter for a triangle is S1 plus S2 plus S3. So very similar to the square, S stands for side. So I'm going to show you the fact that the sides are just the sides of the triangle. Now, for the area's equation, it is a half times B times height. So the half times base times height. Now let's move on to circle. The circle is a little different. We focus on the radius, which reaches out into the middle of the circle, because the circle doesn't have sides, it's just round. And also, for a circle, it only really focuses on the circumference, which is the same thing as perimeter. It's just called something a little different, which goes by C equals 2 pi times R, which R stands for the radius, and then the area is pi times R squared. So now I'm going to go ahead and set you up for the trapezoid. The trapezoid is very similar to like the triangle. It has a height and a base on it when it comes to its equations. For perimeter, we have S1 plus S2 plus S3 plus S4, which very similar to the triangle, the sides are just the sides. It has nothing to do with the height and the base. Now the area is where the height and the base come in. The equation goes the half times height times base 1 plus base 2. Lastly, I am going to set you up for a parallelogram. And I know I drew the shape first this time. I'm so sorry. I do write the actual name. Here we go. Now for the parallelogram, it is very similar to the triangle and the trapezoid. It has the height and the base a part of its equations. So for perimeter of the parallelogram, it goes 2 times the length times the width, and the area, which equals the base times the height. So it's actually very similar to the rectangle. I'm just going ahead and writing out all of the letters and what they stand for you down below, just so that you can see it a little bit better. So P is for perimeter, A is for area, B is for base, H is for height, L is for length, W is for width, R is for radius, and S is for side, and I'm also going to add the C for circumference over here above perimeter, just so you remember that C stands for circumference, and it's very similar to perimeter. Now I'm going to have a chart for you guys that has all of this nice and neat for you in your files tab, so that you can check on this every single time you need to look for the equations when you are working on them. So let's go ahead and get started with our first practice question. So this first practice question, it says to find the perimeter. Each side of a square piece of sheet metal is 8 meters long. What is the sheet metal's perimeter? So I like to highlight and underline and circle any of the key words, which of course is find the perimeter and perimeter, because that's what is going to help me know what I am going to work on for this question, which is finding the perimeter. I also want to point out the each side and how it's identifying that we are using a square piece, and that each side of the square piece is 8 meters long. So I'm going to go ahead and start drawing out my square, because Miss Gonzalez is a visual learner and I love drawing it out because I feel like it helps me the absolute most when I am working on math problems. So like the problem said, each side is 8 meters long. So we're going to write 8m, which stands for 8 meters on each side of the square. Now we need to find our equation for perimeter. So if we come back and we look at our cheat sheet of equations, we can see that the square perimeter is 4 times s. And I'm going to write it out because I feel like it helps me to remember these equations the absolute most when I write them out myself. And it also keeps me in track. So I'm also going to write to the side that S equals 8m. I feel like this helps us stay a little bit accountable. So I'm going to continue to write it out, and I'm going to write 4 times 8 because S equals 8 meters. And then I'm going to come off to the side, and we're going to calculate 4 times 8, which is 32 meters. I forgot to write the M, but you are supposed to write the M afterwards for it to signify that the perimeter is 32 meters long. All right, so we are going to go ahead and move on to our next task card, which again, it is finding the perimeter. So I'm going to highlight some of my key features. So find the perimeter. Each side of a square playground is 19 meters long. What is the playground's perimeter? So I've already highlighted the fact that I know I'm going to be doing perimeter. I underlined the each side again, and that it's identifying that I'm using a square, and that it gave me each side equals 19 meters long. I'm drawing out my square. I'm going to go ahead and first write that S equals 19 meters because it tells me each side of the square is 19 meters long. Now I'm going to go ahead and write it on each side. And we are looking for the perimeter, which let's continue to write it because we do totally remember that it is 4 times S because we just wrote it in the last one. And S equals 19. So we're going to write perimeter equals 4 times 19. And I'm going to come off to the side over here, and I am going to show my work and do the multiplication. Which, let's see, 9 times 4 is going to equal 36. So I'm going to have my 6 down below and bring up my 3. And then 4 times 1 is 4, plus the 3 I have on top is 7. So I'm going to bring it on over here and push it into my equation because the perimeter equals 76 meters. Fabulous. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the next task card. Now this task card says find the area. Each side of a square painting is 6 feet long. What is the painting's area? So I have already highlighted the fact that we're going to be doing area. I'm underlining that each side of a square is 6 feet long. So it's telling me that I'm working with a square again. So I'm going to go ahead and draw out my square. Each side is 6 feet long. And I've wrote my FT for feet. I have looked at the question again that it says each side is 6 feet. I'm going to write the 6 feet around each part or each side of the square, excuse me. Now I'm going to write out my area equation. I'm going to go back to my cheat sheet and find my area for a square, which is the S squared. And I'm going to go ahead and write it right here because we like to practice writing them out. And I am going to plug it into my equation. Now, there's something that we need to focus on with this 6 squared. So this 2, this squared, it's called an exponent. And it kind of works a little bit differently. So how it works is that this exponent is multiplied to the 6. But when I say it's multiplied to the 6, I don't mean 6 times 2. I'm going to show you what I mean. I'm going to write it out. So when you have an exponent, so just like this one with the 6 squared, it's meaning that you are going to multiply that number inside the parentheses twice. So it'll look like this. It'll look like the 6 times 6 in the parentheses. It will not look like this. It will not look like 6 times 2. That is not what the exponent is doing or what it's asking you to do. It's asking you to multiply the number inside the parentheses twice. So we are going to scooch it on over here and fix it. and continue on our equation, which 6 times 6 equals 36. And so that means that our area equals 36 feet. And I like to box my answers just so that you can see them clearly. All right, let's move on to the next task card for our practice. So again, we are finding the area. However, this time it looks like we are dealing with a rectangle. So a rectangle restaurant kitchen is 10 meters long and 8 meters wide. What is its area? Ooh, so now we need to look for a different shape other than a square. So we're working with the rectangle. And off to, well, first let me point out the fact that it says long and wide. I'm going to go ahead and write off to the side and make a note of it because I feel like it helps me a lot more when I make notes on the side rather than just reading the question. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to find our area for the rectangle for the equation, which is A equals length times width. I'm going to go all the way back. And I'm going to make a note of the fact that long stands for length and wide stands for width. I'm going to write it here on our rectangle so I can see it a little bit better. And I'm going to write out my normal routine of writing the equation. So like we said, area equals length times width for the rectangle. And our length is 10 and our width is 8. So we're going to go ahead and put that into our equation. And I'm going to come off to the side and do my multiplication where 8 times 0 is 0 and 8 times 1 is 8. So our area is 80 meters. Awesome. So if you guys have any questions or need any other help, you know where to find me. Good job, guys.